Fantasy managers, hello, good evening, and welcome back for the final time this season for the 2020 and 2021 Premier League season to the final review edition of the FPL Addicts and Esports Live Fantasy Weekly videocast and podcast. It's been an incredible season, lots of ups and downs, lots of cancellation of matches, and we hope that we never experience a season quite like it again. But with me to dissect it all are the usuals, but we'll start off with my right-hand man in the commentary box. We've got Ollie Walker-Peel. He's back for the final bumper podcast of the season. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, mate, I'm really good, thank you, mate. Obviously, like we said, I've missed a few podcasts as well, so it's nice to be back on the M1. We all said last week rather how emotional this one was going to be, and obviously how we said the first week we were in lockdown, and the last one turns out we're also in lockdown. But it's nice to have made it through. Decent finish, I'm happy with. Would have potentially liked a little bit more, but still good to be on the pod anyway.
Yeah, well, you would be happy, just sort of finishing a little bit below me, sort of just solidifies your level as an FPL manager, but we'll get more onto that later. We've got Statman Dave with us again today, who's he's turned his FPL season around a lot since getting on the podcast. He's got all the information, all the inside scoop, and he's here for the final day with us today. So how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, doing well, guys.
Yeah, it's brilliant to have you back, and we've got Matt from FPL Addicts, the guru, the man that's helped all of you out there this season so much. We know that you're all thanking him through the screen. So how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, good, thanks, Elliot. Look, stressful and long season, but look, absolutely buzzing for the Euros in a couple of weeks as well. So yeah, can't complain.
Yeah, we're all getting ready for the Euros now. And Jack was just telling us before that the shirt that he's wearing now has waited all season for it to arrive, the Manchester United shirt for this season. And it's only just arrived, so it's going to be outdated pretty soon. But how are you doing, Jack?
Doing well, lads. Obviously emotional. This is the emotional one. Last recording for the Premier League for the Fantasy Premier League season. Our inaugural one. It's been a hell of an effort from you all, and obviously appreciate all the work you guys have put into it, and all our community and fans that have supported the podcast and been a part of our community.
Yeah, it's been really, really brilliant this season for a lot of people around the world that haven't been able to find much joy in their normal lives. They've indulged themselves into the world of Fantasy Premier League, and it's made a lot of people a lot happier. So we'll start the podcast tonight, the final podcast, with a review of the Premier League season. And it was no surprise, halfway through the season, it didn't look like they were going to lose it from this position, Matt. It was Manchester City that came out as the champions. I know you've had your say on them a lot this season. They spent a lot of money to get to where they are, and they were the champions. But what did you sort of make of their season?
Oh yeah, they definitely deserved it. Played some good football, some really good FPL assets in there as well, which we'll touch on a bit later. But yeah, they definitely deserved it, and I don't think there was anyone that was really close to them. United were some way off as well, so definitely deserved champions, I think, this season.
Yeah, Jack, did you think at any point that maybe Manchester United were going to be on their heels and just catch them maybe towards the back end of the season?
Of course I did.
And you call yourself, would call you an idiot for that, mate, I think.
What a nonsense question. Listen, if you don't believe in it, it'll never happen, right? I think there's obviously been some strange things happening this season. We've seen all the results that have happened throughout this campaign been so up and down, you couldn't call them. So I think, City came from, I think it was like January, December time when it getting that West Brom draw, and they turned it around from there, and they came from nowhere. Liverpool were nowhere to be seen. United have found themselves in that mix at the top. You never knew what could happen, but realistically, last couple of games, no chance. But it was nice to be in the mix and to finish runners up. Happy days.
Yeah, and do you think with a couple of signings, maybe Prince Harry, Jadon Sancho, that you can properly challenge for the title next season?
Hey, listen, both of them would be quite nice, wouldn't they? I know Matt's urging Kane to sign for United. He's a secret Man United fan at heart. I know he'd love to see him in there rather than anywhere else. And then Sancho would be great. A bit of Raphael Varane maybe, or another French defender. That'd be, happy days.
Yeah, it would make a fine addition to the collection of a team that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is building there. I think one of my shocks of the season, lads, I haven't compiled any, but Liverpool in third place was an absolutely monumental accomplishment from Jurgen Klopp. Ollie, just how insane was that? A couple of games to go. They had to win all of theirs to make the Champions League, and they actually ended up finishing third, only 5 points behind Man United, who a lot of their fans tormented them all season as they like to go at each other. So them finishing third was quite special.
Well, I mean, you've got to put it into context, I suppose. From where they were, yes, from where they were, in seventh and struggling to push forward, or wherever they were at that point, needing results quickly, and no one thought they'd make the top four. Yes, you could say it was a decent end to the season, but if you put into the season as a whole, it's been a poor season for Liverpool because they've been, outside top four for the majority of the end of the season. They were barnstorming title winners last season, and they won the league. Everyone expected them to go back and do it again, and they fallen more short of that. So a really end to the season, but you just think that run in about January when they lost 5 or 6 in a row at home or something, whatever it was, something mental, and then lost at home for years, has really just tipped their season. So it's been a disappointing one for me. It's good effort towards the end, but I feel like a lot of Liverpool fans should be disappointed.
Yeah, and I know you were delighted for their home record to be broken by none other than Ashley Barnes, mate. You're absolutely thrilled, up celebrating that one, up in arms, celebrating. So you must have been very thrilled with that one. And to round off the top four, Chelsea managed to finish fourth despite their loss on the final day to Aston Villa, which means, Statman Dave, that Leicester City and Kelechi Iheanacho have finished fifth. Brendan Rodgers has choked it again, so they won't be playing Champions League football next season. But, they had a lot of good FPL assets this season, Leicester. So are you sad to sort of see them finish outside the top four?
Yeah, probably. They probably maybe deserve to be there and thereabouts, but probably the ones that I was sort of hoping were going to sneak in were West Ham. I think they probably exceeded a lot of people's expectations this year, and they were looking like they might have been in that hunt, but they've sort of just missed out as well. But yeah.
Yeah, it was a real shame to see that West Ham and Leicester didn't manage to break into the top four. Would have been nice to see a little disruption to your typical top four. But Matt, if we look down there in seventh place, we've got Spurs there, the first ever team to qualify for the UEFA Conference League. Are you excited for the, is it Friday mornings over in Australia, in Albania? Is that what it is?
Look, you've got to I'm at a point now, just take what we can get, I think, for the season. And, it's not what we wanted. It's not the comp you want to be in, but I've just got to try and take something from the season, being above Arsenal and having some sort of European competition, in Albania to look forward to. And we'll see how we go. If we make the final, I've already said I'll fly out to, wherever it is and go. So here we go.
You'll have
to do Albania, mate.
Yeah, you'll have to do a podcast from Albania.
That would be some podcast.
It would be a very, very interesting one, but we will hold you accountable for that, Matt. If you do manage to make the final, we'll be sending you off to Albania and we'll be saying hello to you.
Make this happen. I'd rather see Harry Kane stay at Spurs and the Guru go to Albania.
We'll find some background of an Albanian stadium to stick behind your head for the next podcast.
It would be very, very funny. But as you said, you did manage to finish above Arsenal by the hair on your chin, just by 1 point. So that's always a win in Spurs fans' eyes. So you won't mind that one at all too much. Ollie, 9th place, we got Leeds. Very surprising team this season. I think a lot of people had high expectations for them coming up to the Premier League. Marcelo Bielsa, he has a lot of big reputation behind him, plays very good football that we've seen this season. So 9th place for them this season. Do you think that's a fair sort of position for them to be finishing?
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant season for Leeds. Obviously, they came up from the Championship. They absolutely lost the Championship. And there's a lot of those players that came up that are doing well for them. Look at the likes, it's headlined by Bamford, isn't it? Patrick Bamford, who scored a lot of their goals this season for the Ellen Road side. But, yeah, I thought they would be fine this season. Pre-season, I sort of said 13th, maybe. They'd be fine. Lower rungs of mid-table, but to finish inside the top half as a newly promoted side, something that you rarely see. So, yeah, brilliant season for Leeds, and I think they can pick on maybe next season, maybe more signings. We know what Bielsa's like, absolute massive manager, so Leeds should be looking to kick on, but brilliant season for them this year.
Yeah, I'll definitely know what he'll be wanting in the transfer window. And we've heard a lot of murmurs about Everton's sort of transfer plans as well. They managed to finish 10th this season, which after, they won the league in November, lads, I thought as well, didn't they? So it's quite surprising that they ended up not even finishing in the European spot. But Ancelotti just couldn't sort of drag the players over the line this season, Matt, could he? That just sort of tapered out. Calvert-Lewin stopped scoring the goals and just tapered out to nothing, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. I think they've gone under the radar. They bought quite a few players. They've got a world-class coach in charge, and kind of disappointed, I think. And really got away with that one, I think, in terms of with the press and stuff. When you look at what happened to Mourinho, you look at the stick Arteta gets and the stick Ollie gets, and Ancelotti's kind of just gone under the radar there with what's been a pretty poor season for them in the end after that start they had. So
yeah, Ben Godfrey, James Rodriguez, Decore, and Allen, all massive
James.
signings that they made in the summer that people just sort of forget about because they haven't been performing too much, haven't been on the big stages that they really should have. You felt they should have been doing better than finishing outside the European places, especially for this year's competition. In 11th place, we had Aston Villa, which was sort of expected. Jack Grealish sort of carries them over the line, doesn't he? And he sort of picked up an injury, so they definitely didn't have the best end of their season. But they started off quite well, much like Everton, but they just sort of couldn't challenge for the European spaces. But a lot of people predicted for them to go down this season, so I'm sure they would be happy with 11th.
Oh, I think they'd be buzzing with it, and they were looking so good in that first kind of third of the season, first half. The defence looked great; they weren't conceding many goals. Looked solid with Mings, target the back. And Martinez in goal, obviously. And then Grealish got injured, and then they kind of just had that steady kind of decline, didn't they? Otherwise, they could have been in a shout for that Conference League position.
The prize possession.
But unfortunate for them, but they look great, and they obviously brought a few signings in to strengthen the team after last year. What a gaffer he is, Dean Smith. Looking great in there.
Done a brilliant job this season. And in 12th place is my team, Newcastle. Just about toppling Wolves there, as you can see, the same goal difference, same point. So we actually beat them on goals scored to go into 12th place this season, which sort of marks off. I don't know if it's a fair establishment of where we should have finished. I think we should have been a little bit lower, but you never complain about that. So credit to all the lads, all the managers there that helped us finish that way this season. After a lot of games, everyone sort of thought that was it. Ollie knows more than anyone that we could have easily been relegated. Could have taken that Fulham spot. So were you quite surprised to see us finish 12th this season, Ollie?
Mate, I know I've sat with you through so many Newcastle games, too many Newcastle games. I thought you lot were gone. I won't lie. I was always being optimistic, obviously saying to try to keep you positive, just saying, "Oh, you lot will be fine. You lot will sort it out." But I thought that you lot were down for some part of the season. But up the mag himself, Joe Willett came in 7 in 7, and he revolutionised that Newcastle side. And it looks like you're going to miss out on him. It's going to be 35-40 million, and then Arsenal want for him. I don't think Mike Ashley. Well, I mean, he could stump it up, but I don't think he will, which is a massive loss for Newcastle. Next season should be, we're troubling without him. You've got to find a replacement for him, because obviously you look back before his arrival. You lost away at Bramall Lane, which not many sides lost there. I mean, only on the final day, which was nice to see, but not many sides lost to Sheffield United. Obviously, United being another, but so different topic for another day. But you lot need to strengthen, because it's another one of those where most seasons now, even in the last few seasons under Rafa Benitez, it was like, you flirting with relegation, you stay up just about. It's another one of those, so you just got to be careful.
Yeah, definitely. And as you're talking about Joe Willett there, the Premier League Player of the Month for the month of May, which I believe hasn't been done before. I was reading something, it's probably one of the first that has happened there. So he's a history maker, and to do it in a Newcastle shirt is the first time since Tim Krul in 2013. So quite special from him. And then we go down to the bottom of the league, Fulham, West Brom and Sheffield United. It was pretty clear to see that they would be relegated pretty early on, Jack, wasn't it, with Sheffield United? They just weren't fit to fight another season in the Premier League.
No, they needed to spend a bit more money, didn't they? I mean, after the season that they had last year was unbelievable. Sheffield United looked great, but it all kind of went downhill for them, didn't they? And I think Fulham and West Ham, Fulham gave it a good go. I think we all pretty much said Scotty Parker might be one of the first to go, but he's kind of lasted. Maybe they spent obviously a fair whack in there as well, but just still looked quite very inexperienced. Gave it a bit of a go in January, brought a few more signings. They looked a bit more solid at the back, didn't they? And West Brom, with the changeover to Sam Allardyce, not even Big Sam could save him. And you know how that goes, Elliot.
Yeah, definitely, mate. So they're the three that are relegated from this season, and replacing them, we've got Norwich, Watford, and Brentford, who won the playoff final in the night. So Ollie, Brentford, we were speaking about them a little bit before. They're quite an exciting team. Ivan Toney obviously steals a lot of the headlines with all the goals that he's been scoring this season, but are they going to be a force to be reckoned with next season, do you think?
I think they'll stay up Brentford next season. I think obviously I've watched both, obviously Brentford playing Rovers home and away. Ivan Toney scored pens in both those games. I obviously watched them last night in the playoff final. They dominated early on. 2 goals in the opening 20 minutes against Swansea. One from Tony and one from Emiliano Marcondes, and the game was pretty much done and dusted. So out of the current assets they've got there, out of the current players they've got, I think Tony's the only real one with FPL potential pedigree. 33 goals, you can't really look past that. I think he's 7 million or under. Go for him. And then obviously the players around that are going to probably play. I think David Raya in goal, former Rovers keeper, will probably hold his spot. The two centre halves I think one of the two centre halves in Ethan Pinnock, I think, will play. You've got the likes of maybe Brian and Burmo might be able to keep his spot. I think both fullbacks in Henry and Dalsgaard will play. And then Janel, who's a really good German centre defensive midfielder. But outside of that, I think Brentford have to spend a lot. I think they will spend a lot. So their championship side, a lot of those players might not even get a look. So interesting to see who they bring in. Because I think there will be a lot of transfer dealings going to the Brentford Community Stadium. So it'll be interesting to see if any of those become FPL assets.
Yeah, the Lego Stadium, they call it, mate, taking a little bit of banter out of the design there, isn't it? They call it the Lego Stadium. So, yeah, on the topic of FPL, that was the season review, but we'll move on now. And the champion of our FPL league for this season was Tom Stones. Ollie, he's one of your mates, isn't he? So has he always been like FPL crazy, FPL mad?
Well, I lost contact with him because obviously he's an English lad, a Blackburn lad. Look at the photo there, absolutely photogenic as Tom Stones, but a Blackburn lad. I lost contact with him. And I saw him at the top of the league. I'm like, mate, is this you? And he's like, yeah. So I didn't know he was this good at FPL. I sort of knew that he played, but I didn't know he was this good. But he had an incredible season, runaway leader at the top of the league, and deserved to win it.
Yeah, definitely. He was away with it quite early on in the season, wasn't he, Matt? There wasn't much challenging him. We sort of said for the past 5 or 6 game weeks that, we could sort of give him the trophy now, couldn't we?
Yeah, he had a phenomenal season, and he was getting his captain spot on, his transfer spot on. He had big scores most weeks. So yeah, well done, Tom Stones. Really, really good performance in our first debut season of the FPL Addicts and Esports Live League. So congratulations.
Yeah, we'll go down in the history books, get his name on the trophy. We'll engrave it for you, and we'll send it off. And then in 10 years' time, all our names will hopefully be on there. The Guru will especially be hoping that he makes it on there. But Jack, we look at that there overall rank, top 5,377 in the world. That is absolutely insane.
Absolutely mind-blowing. I think I'm about 500,000 behind him in there. So it's just puts into context how high up he is. He's definitely one of the highest achievers I know in terms of who we spoke to and who we've communicated with in our community. So it's outstanding to have someone so highly ranked in our competition, and shows how strong that community can be and how tough our league actually is. The points are outrageous, and the second place was not even really that. Not even that close. It was 100 points, I think, difference, something like that. So it's an outrageous effort from him, and he smashed it. Like I said early on, he was smashing so many high points. His hauls were massive. So well done, Tom Stones, and congratulations for being on the inaugural winner, like you said. And we'll get that trophy sent over to him. That'll be hopefully we can get him on. It'd be good to see him in the Euros, and obviously definitely back next year to bounce back and. Imagine going back-to-back seasons winning the mini league. So that's a good challenge for him.
Yeah, definitely. We'd love to get you on at some point and have a chat to you, mate. Maybe you can give us some good insights for next season and everything like that. Help us have a little bit of a boost, because representing the podcast, the first person out of us next in the league was Matt Day, the Guru, who managed to finish inside the top 10 by the hair on his chin. As we said before, he just about made it, finishing 10th. So he'll be delighted with that himself. You can see there he's got a little grin on there. So were you happy to finish inside that top 10, Matt? You sort of said earlier on in the season that you'd take that.
Yeah, look, I scraped in there on the last day, by a couple of points. I think I just got in front of you, Elliot. Obviously, you had a pretty consistent season. So yeah, I'll take the top 10. It's been tough. The dark days of being in the 65th, 66th type of positions around November, December time, and it was looking quite gloomy. But finished the season strong in the second half, and the standard of this league's high. So to finish in that top 10, I'll take that this year after a slow start. So happy with that.
Yeah, and as you mentioned just before there, you did just about manage to beat me. As you said, consistent was probably the word that I would use to describe my season. I managed to finish 2 points behind you and finish 11th in this competitive mini league. We really can't emphasize enough just how tight it is inside this league. So Kasper Schmeichel is now my least liked player on the planet for getting me that -2 on the last day. So he is the reason that my season all fell apart. But that's my fault for putting my faith in him. But no, I was happy with 11th. Well, remember the days where I was actually top of the league at one point, lads. They were simpler, easier times. So that definitely all fell apart for me quite quickly. But the win that I always take in FPL, and I always have since I've started playing it, is as long as I finish above Ollie, who finished 13th. It's a win in my eyes. 5 points above him. That's all. Honestly, that's all I really care about in Fantasy Premier League. So that's all that matters to me. So, Ollie, that's the second year in a row now, mate, that you finished below me. So, how does it feel to lose again?
Look, fair play. Obviously, the better man won, so that's fair play. I think it's going to be like the Arsenal Tottenham dynamic. Sorry to bring Tottenham into this, but this is the closest I can sort of think. Arsenal finished above Tottenham for so long. And then Tottenham got that one season when they finished above Arsenal, and they sort of sold it back a little bit now. I think the day my St Tottenham's day comes will be brilliant. I can't wait for it, but it's that close, isn't it? It's so close. Every single season you picked me again. Like, look at the team final day. I did everything I could just to try and get there back into the top 10. Couldn't quite do it, but it's been a good season nonetheless. I'll take it. I was hoping to finish top 10, just fall short of that, but top 20, I'll take 100%.
Yeah, and as you say, that was a brilliant score for the last game week. So you would have been hoping that you would have broken to the top 10 with that. You would have had all your hopes crushed, which is heartbreaking for you. But we'll just move on because it's not really that important, is it? Not finishing inside the top 10. So we'll move on to Jack, really. who didn't. Again, if we look back to the start of the season, we'll flash back to his FPL suicide, his famous FPL suicide. And what week was it, Jack? Was it week 5 or something?
No, first week.
Was it first week? Was it second week? Right.
After the first round, picked my squad and realised half the players weren't even turning up this year, like Aubameyangs and them kind of ones. And yeah, I had an overhaul. Wasn't happy.
His FPL suicide has led him to finish, 37th in the mini league isn't awful, by your standards. You said, didn't you say top 50 you'd have been happy with?
I think, yeah. Obviously, it kind of changed along the period as I was progressing. I think initially top 50 was a good one for me. Like I said, I've never done a full season, to be fair. So this is the first time I've done a full season. So it's nice to finish in that top 40, I guess we can call it now. So happy days with that. I think I was borderline top 30 for a good while, and even had a chance at top 20, but just fell off the wagon. Didn't go my way. But yeah, happy with the finish, I guess, overall.
Yeah, well, you can always take solace in the fact that you beat Statman Dave, who managed to finish 49th in our mini league. So he will be happy that you finished inside the top 50. So you should be very happy with yourself there, Statman Dave. Are you sort of pleased with that as one of your first seasons in FPL, 49th in the mini league?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I probably last couple of rounds I struggled and I could have finished higher. I think the last 2 weeks were the only 2 consecutive red arrows that I had for the season. So I'm pretty happy with that. Unfortunately, I had about 5 players out in the last round. So I think Greenwood, Fernandez, Pereira and Llorente all got rested. But I think as far as the whole season goes, I started in week 2, so I was already a week down on everyone to start with. So I was started on the back foot. And then I was kind of hoping early in the season to finish top half. And then I started sort of exceeding that expectation, I suppose. And then went for sort of top 50, and then there was one stage I was looking like I'd made the top 50 with about 10 weeks to go, and I was kind of hoping that maybe top 40, but I just sort of didn't finish that strongly, so ended up just scraping in 49. But yeah, February and March had a pretty good couple of months there, so I think I was ranked 15th in the league for February, which I was pretty happy about. But yeah, not the most consistent sort of finish for the season. But yeah, for the first season, I can't complain really.
Yeah, definitely for your breakout season, 49th in the mini league's better than most people would do. So you can definitely take some form of solace in that. And we did mention it a couple of weeks ago on the podcast that it was going to be a photo finish between Matty and James Gasden. And I know James would be absolutely thrilled that we're talking about this here. But, it was a very close matchup between them, wasn't it, Matt? And, Matt, just the better of the Gasdens in the end, wasn't he?
Yeah, there's obviously a bit of banter between the two, and then I sort of fly in there and have to crown one of them the Gasden Guru for the season, which is it's ended up being Matt Gasden. So congrats. I've got to say that I do feel for James. He did miss the deadline, on the last day of the
Ooh.
season, and that was it was gut wrenching. He was up. I think he had a few too many whiskies, and he'd missed a deadline, and so that set him back a bit. But that's FPL. He's lost, and he's got to move on to the Euros. He's in the paid mini league, and he's ready to turn it around and beat Matt now. But congrats to Matt Gasden. He takes it for this season.
Yeah, and if he's lost his dignity, he can definitely try and win some of that back in the economic benefit of the paid mini league for the Euro fantasy. So we'll be hoping to see him claw a little bit of his earnings back in there. But Ollie, one of our mates, Max Watson, he'll be thrilled that we're talking about him here. It's his second year of doing fantasy Premier League, and he was telling us at the start of the season that he was going to do well, and he's managed to finish 27th in the league, which is actually I'm quite proud of him for that, because I didn't expect for him to stick with it, lads, to be honest. I thought he was going to give up halfway through and just sort of start doing the FPL suicide. So it was quite a decent finish from him, wasn't it, in 27th, Ollie?
Yeah, it was. Obviously, we talk about it a lot. It's all he ever talks about FPL is, Max. Like Chris Reed, as soon as you go to on a PS4 party with him, he'll mention FPL straight away. And it's nice to see it. It puts a smile on my face. I like talking FPL, but he's done really well as Max, because knowing him, he was making some preposterous calls pre-season saying, "Oh, look, is Joe Bryan going to do anything or anything like that?" But he's ignored that. He's done well. He's done really well. So fair play to Maxi Bon, as we call him. He's not done too bad. Yeah,
it definitely was nice to see him. As you said, all he ever likes to talk about is fantasy Premier League. You're not wrong there. So hats off to you, Max, and we'll be seeing you next season, mate. Definitely, and maybe inside the top 20 next season or something like that. But you can stop leeching off me and Ollie for advice now, so you can you're on your own now, so you can just watch this and that's it. And we're not giving you any more helpers now. No more holding hands. It's all on you now. So I'm sure Ollie won't argue with that one either.
Agreed.
Yeah, definitely. And one of our other guests, Joe Cadella, Jack, a lot of the guests that came on were acquaintances of you. So he managed to finish inside the top 38. He finished 38th this season, which in quite a competitive league isn't bad for a man like him. So was he quite happy with the way that he finished this season?
I don't think he'd be happy losing, especially because I finished 1 point above him. So he's definitely... Yeah, it's brutal. So I'm due to, after this lockdown, I'm due for a haircut. So we'll be catching up, and I'll give him a bit of banter anyway about his finish. He'll say that he lost interest, but, he took his eye off the ball, didn't he? And finished above him there. So unfortunate for Joe. Yeah,
you just have to give him a little bit of a nudge about that and rub it in his face just a little bit. Just the way that it's meant to be, we play for pride and play for dignity in this mini league, and it can be strapped away from you, as we've seen with a lot of FPL managers this season. One of our very own, Chris Reed, managed to finish 70th, which for a man that talks a lot about FPL, as we've said, 70th, Jack, is he happy with that or not really?
Chris will not be happy with that. He talks a hell of a lot about FPL, loves his football, but he's not done the business in the league. He has definitely got more into it, which is good though. I think he was around the hundreds for a long time. He's a bit transfer happy, is Chris. Is Reedy, so he loves a transfer. He can't resist it. I think he was making an average 3 or 4 a week, so I think that's what's kind of done him there. He might even make an appearance on the pod later on today as well. So we'll see if we've still got time for him at the end. We'll have to leave about 20 minutes for him to talk, though.
Just for him to talk about Liverpool, I think, if he can, if he's stopped celebrating that, he'll definitely be very, very happy with that. And then finally, in terms of our guests, Andrew Banting Jack managed to finish 126, which is quite shocking from someone that we had on as the podcast to, give people advice and have them on as a guest. To finish 126 is not the best, is it?
Yeah, Andy was absolutely horrendous second half of the season. He'll blame it on not having enough time and stuff like that, but I know he was very much into it, and his brother's really into it as well, who lives in America, and he gives him a lot of banter about it. So I think he just switched off his phone and deleted the app, to be honest, because he just had an absolute horrendous back end of the season. Dropped in our Blackpool mini league as well, so yeah, I'm not too sure what's going on with him. He needs to sort himself out. But it was good to have him on. I think he might also use the curse of the podcast as one as well, because he seems like a few people have dropped away after being on the pod.
Well, some people just can't keep up with it, but we thank every single one of you, no matter where you finished in the mini league, for being a part of it this season, and we definitely hope to see you next season and hope to see you in the mini leagues for the Euros. And for the final time this season, that wraps up the mini league review. And on the topic of very last times for this season, he's got a little smile on now, and it's actually quite emotional. We've got Matt Day, the Guru's very last Guru section. So for the last time this season, Matt, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Elliot. And look, thanks, Ollie, as well, for you've been the host for a few episodes this season. So I want to say thanks to both of you. And but we'll kick on with our final Guru section, starting off with the 3 differentials. Very, very tough one to pick. But I'm going to go with Jack Harrison as my number 1 pick. 160 points he's ended up on. I believe for most of the season he was under 10% owned. So huge differential, and definitely one of the best. A second one, which Statman Dave will love, is Matthias Pereira. He ended up on 153 points. And he's another one who was on 10% ownership or less for pretty much the whole season as well. And then a third one, it's going to be Lewis Dunk. I really think he went under the radar this season from Brighton. He got a few goals. He was getting bonus. He was getting clean sheets. 130 points. Budget player as well. And again, he was below 10% ownership for the majority of the season as well. So they wrap up my top 3 differentials for the season.
Yeah, and Matthias Pereira, Matt, he was a very, very hot prodigy for this season. Do you think he'll sort of get snapped up by a bigger team and fight to see another season in the Premier League?
Yeah, I think he's got to get signed up by someone else. I wouldn't mind seeing him at Spurs, to be honest. He's a playmaker. We need that type of player. I think he's top quality. But yeah, he'll be somewhere. If it's not us, maybe in Everton, West Ham, someone like that. I think he's destined to be back in the Premier League.
Yeah, definitely. And you've had your best 3 differentials. We'll move on now to your best 3 players to have owned. And who have you gone with?
Well, look, James Gadsden, sorry if you're watching, but it's going to have to be Martinez, I think, this season. If you had him in your team, you'd be laughing. He started off at 4.5 million from game week 1, ended up the highest point scoring goalkeeper, just the amount of save points, bonus points. He was unbelievable. So, definitely number 1 for me in terms of the best 3 players to have owned for the season. And then the second one, it's going to be Stuart Dallas from Leeds. Again, 4.5 million from game week 1. Spent most of the season in midfield. He was at right back. He was sometimes in attack midfield. He was on the wing. He was absolutely everywhere, and phenomenal. Huge amount of points in the end, and he just kept grabbing goals. And then my third one, it's going to be another Leeds player. I didn't actually own him too much. I think I only owned him for a couple of game weeks myself, but I know he was pretty high owned by most of you and a lot of people in our mini league. And it's going to be Bamford, 5.5 million from game week 1. And then his price skyrocketed, and I don't think anyone had expected him to score as many goals as he did. So that definitely, I think they're all deserving of the best 3 players to have owned this season.
Yeah, definitely can't argue with too many there. On the topic of Patrick Bamford, I remember me and Ollie, we were getting asked a lot in the pre-season if Bamford was going to be worth it for a lot of people, and we both have egg on our face because we both told them that Bamford has tried it in the Premier League before, he wouldn't make it again, and we were definitely wrong there. He surprised a lot of people, and as you said, he spent a lot of time in my team this season, so I'm very, very grateful for him doing that. On towards your captain picks for the last of the season now. So who are the best captains to have this season?
Yeah, look, it's going to be the 3 usuals, the 3 obvious ones. Definitely Harry Kane. I think, for me, I've put him up there as the best. I know he wasn't the highest goal scorer. His top scorer. He wasn't the highest point scorer for FPL. But there was just some weeks where, he hit 19 points. He'd hit another 19. He hit 21 points in one of the game weeks. And, he had some massive weeks, goals and assists. And, he was so consistent. So he's definitely, the top captain pick for me this year. Number 2. It's going to be Jack's man, Bruno Fernandez, has to be in there. It was a bit disappointing, I think, in terms of his goals from open play. But, when you needed a pen, he was always there grabbing pens. He got, a few assists in there as well. And, there was that period in the first half of the season where every week he was just, getting points. So, definitely has to be in there. And then the third one, Salah, again, he just does it again every season. He's always in the top scoring players. He had a bit of a dip in the second half of the season, but in terms of a captain choice, he was pretty consistent throughout the whole season. So definitely deserves to be in that top 3.
Yeah, I don't think I could have picked 3 better captains myself for this season, mate. So I'm definitely in full agreement with you there. And then as your curveball captain, I've just seen who it is, and it's put the biggest smile on my face. So would you like to reveal who you've gone with?
Yeah, it's got to be Dallas from Leeds. Starting off as a defender, and the price point that he was at, Leeds, brilliant season, really attacking football, and he had a great season. And I think as a curveball, you can't look past a goal-scoring defender and a consistent goal-scoring defender. So yeah, definitely deserves that curveball shout. Whether or not he's going to stay as a defender next season will be an interesting one. I'm wondering if FPL is going to move him to a midfielder. And I definitely think we'll see his price go to that, 5.5 to 6 mil price range as well. He definitely won't be staying at 4.5 million next season.
No, definitely not. And I think you're right. I think they will change him to a midfielder next season. I think to have him in defence again would be a little bit of a cheat code. So, I think, we've enjoyed it whilst we can. And, Stuart Dallas will be a midfielder next season. And, definitely, as you said, won't be priced around 4.5 million. But we thank you very much, Matt, this season for every single week getting up here and sharing all the information to help everyone try and beat you in the mini league. So, you've always given us your honest thoughts despite what you might have been doing. So, massive thank you to the Guru. I know you've helped a lot of us out. So, thank you very much, mate.
Thanks, everyone. And look.
So we will move on now from the Guru section, and we'll go into our it's sort of like an FPL awards type thing. That's what I'm going to call it, lads. It's like an award show. So we're going to discuss our favourite player we owned, our biggest FPL regret, our best FPL moment, and our best score, and then our surprise player of the season. So we'll start with the favourite player we've owned. And Matt, I'm going to go straight to you because I'm pretty certain I'd put all my life savings on it being your man, Harry Kane.
No, it's not actually, Elliot. No. It was a tough one. It was going to be, could have been Kane, I think, just because of his price point. He was kind of an obvious pick. So, could have been James Justin, but then he got the injury. So I'm going to go with Gundogan. I just think the form he had in that spell for a couple of months was just phenomenal. The price point, and just owning him when he was just scoring for fun, and not too many people had him. So at that point, definitely Gundogan. I thought he was brilliant to own for those few months.
Yeah, definitely. That just highlights why I'm not a betting man, because I would have lost all my money there. But Ollie, what sort of player? Has anyone else gone with Harry Kane? Have you gone with Harry Kane?
Well, I like a long term. Obviously, the Harry Kane's a really boring shout, but I want a little bit of an outside shout to Rob Holding and Pablo Mari. Back over Christmas time, honestly, when they had the double, I think they had win over like West Brom or something, and Pablo Mari was getting bonus points left, right, and centre. Rob Holding was getting clean sheet points, and even they're probably not my most favourites over the season, but for that time period, about 2 or 3 game weeks where they were both playing, it was unbelievable. So they'd probably be up there, I'd say. But if we're going whole season, it probably is Harry Kane. But I also shout to those 2 Arsenal defenders because they were unreal to own for like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's not often that Arsenal defenders get much of the limelight, so I'm sure they'll take a lot of joy that Ollie Walker-Peels said they were their favourite FPL asset for this season. And we'll move on to you now, Statman Dave. Who was your favourite player that you owned in FPL this season?
Mine's a little bit of a curveball. So mine's actually Jesse Lingard. So as soon as I heard that he was going out on loan, I went straight away and picked him up. And his first 10 weeks was just epic. Like, he was probably the best player in the game for that 10 weeks, and probably also coincided with the best part of my season as well. So, and I think he was a big part of that.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of managers were, surprised by Jesse Lingard, and a lot of them were happy to have him in their team. And Jack, we'll finish off with you there, because mine is Harry Kane as well, same as Ollie. So I'm pretty sure I've got a decent idea of who you would have picked as your favourite player to own this season. Jack, does he like a penalty or two?
He loves a penalty, mate. You know it, yeah. Bruno Fernandez, absolutely unreal. Best player in the game overall for the season. Most points. He was been absolutely epic and ever present. I only took him out in the last 2 games just purely because obviously it was just that time of the season. They weren't playing, and obviously then they were resting. So I think, Bruno was the one, mate.
Yeah, he definitely helped a lot of FPL managers this season, sort of made it easy for them just to have the captain's armband on him every week for a lot of them, and he would give you 20 odd points or whatever. So he's definitely had an absolutely ridiculous season. So hats off to Bruno Fernandez, and may the penalties continue for next season, because I'm sure a lot of fantasy managers will be keeping him in their team. So they were all our favourite players that we've owned. On a bit more of a negative note now, we're going to go with our biggest regret of the season. And Jack, we'll go to you straight away. Is it going to have anything to do with an FPL suicide?
Listen, I think that is the top of my list, but I was trying to think maybe, I think obviously just making the right, as an overall thing, the captain choices, does that outweigh the suicide? I don't think it does, because obviously blowing 24 at the start of the season wasn't the best idea. But I also then put that down to what position I'm in now, in terms of if I didn't make those transfers and get the points out thereafter, then maybe it was a good decision to do that suicide. So I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence with that.
Yeah, you definitely learned that you'll never do it again because of how much torment we gave you on the podcast the following week. So we definitely won't be seeing any more FPL suicides in the near future, we hope. We'll move on to you now, Matt, for your biggest regret of the season. In a top 10 finish, there can't be too many regrets from you, but do you have one in mind?
Yeah, it's definitely been probably not too decisive on my captains. First half of the season, I picked quite a few poor captains, and it's probably cost me a higher overall finish, and in particular as well, even towards the end when Bale, I was talking about him on the podcast, player of the week, you got to get him in, and he hit that hat trick against Sheffield United, and I just didn't do it, didn't put him in, didn't captain him that week, and that would have given me an even higher position. So probably say those captain choices overall.
Yeah, definitely. And Statman, in your first season doing Fantasy Premier League, you've definitely learnt a lot about the game, but what did you feel was your biggest regret?
There was a couple I was tossing up between. One of them was putting Salah out into the wilderness, even though my team was called Salah. So, but in the end, I went with my poor use of my bench boost. So it was my first chip that I played, and in Gameweek 13, and it only contributed 5 points. So it was the week that Matt Ryan got dumped, and then I had Mahrez fell victim to Pep Roulette. So in the end, bit of a waste of a chip there, and the timing of me using it. But yeah, they're probably the two probably that I thought of.
Yeah, you definitely live and you learn in the game of FPL. So we'll be having to see how your bench boost goes for next season. And then to round it off, Ollie, what was your biggest regret of the season? You've got to have quite a few finishing below me. It can't be that nice. So, out of the multitude of disappointments from you this season, what was your main one?
There's tons, but I want to take it back to one game. Hawthorns, West Brom, Manchester City, and I picked Ruben Diaz in over João Cancelo. I had one like this last season where it was a 50-50 pick. It was between Damari Gray and Ryan Fraser. Damari Gray got 1 point, and Ryan Fraser had about 18. I think I remember I was back at Bournemouth. It was a similar one. I don't even know if Ruben Diaz played, and João Cancelo got a goal, bonus, clean sheet, and even just like 20 points would have helped me out a lot. And then I think another one would be my captain choice in. You might have to help me out here, Matt. When you played Southampton, I don't know, game week 4 rings a bell. Southampton.
It was the second one, wasn't it? Harry Kane and Son ran absolute riot that day.
Just not captaining Heung-min Son was another one, because that would have been amazing to start the season.
Yeah, maybe you would have finished on top of me if you'd gone with him there. So we can thank your poor decision making there. But for me personally, it was not trusting Gundogan to do the goods and keep delivering week in, week out. I just was a bit too stubborn in my own ways and didn't want to get him in, because I knew that the week that I got him in, he would stop performing. And ironically, after all the hype had died down, got him in and he got benched that week. So that's a big lesson for me, and I definitely won't make that mistake again. So if the guru's telling you to get a player in, the lesson there is usually he's pretty spot on, and you've got to go with his man Gundogan, I think. So a lot of people's moments of the season would have been around having Gundogan in their team for sure. But Jack, it's been a crazy season, lots of ups and downs. But your moment of the season, what would you say?
Moment of the season. I'm not too sure. I'm interested to see what the rest of the lads have got first, and that might be able to help me make my decision.
All right, I'll share mine with you then. For me, it was definitely Stuart Dallas in game week I'm not sure what game week it was off the top of my head, but it was against Man City away with his 2 goals and his 17-pointer. Had him first on my bench, and I can't remember who it was that didn't play, but he got subbed on, and that was the best moment for me in Fantasy Premier League this season, definitely. And you know, Stuart Dallas, he's the cult hero for Fantasy Premier League this season, so a lot of managers will be thanking him. But what about you, Ollie? What was your moment of the season?
I know I've just mentioned it off the back of my biggest regret was not captaining Heung-min Son, but just watching that game between Southampton and Tottenham was probably one of mine. It's up there with Dallas against Manchester City for sure, but obviously I had Dallas on my bench that week and I wasn't sure if he was getting on, so that was, sort of nervousness alongside happiness. But definitely watching Harry Kane and Heung-min Son tear Southampton apart. I've never seen anything like that where a couple of matches have just absolutely run riot. And obviously I'm disappointed I didn't captain one of them, but at the end of the day, when you see 2 players like that just tear apart defence and get all those contributions, you just sit back and just think, wow. So that was probably up there for me for the best moment of the season.
Yeah, definitely. And Matt, what was your best moment of the season?
Yeah, look, best one. It's tough. Obviously, there was the Stones one in that double game week, but that was a pretty phenomenal moment. But it doesn't get my number one. My number one is Son. When Mourinho said he was injured, he wasn't going to play, he wasn't in the squad. It was game week 4, I think, around that time, and we were playing Man United away, and he was ruled out, and I said, I'm going to keep him. Don't trust Mourinho. And then he, come out, win the game 6-1, and he gets 18 points. So, that's got to be the best one for me, just sticking with him. And then, he comes out and gets a big score.
Yeah, and I know how much Jack loved that game as well. So it would have been one of his moments of the season. But have you managed to think of one, Jack?
Yeah, listen, in terms of obviously the score against United, not ideal, but in terms of the haul that Kane and Son brought in that week, it was quite a good, wasn't it?
If you're gonna lose, then you want Harry Kane and Son,
side, right?
Yeah. It wasn't all bad for you that day, but we'll round it off with Statman Dave. What was your moment of your debut season in Fantasy Premier League?
Yeah, just like I said with my favourite player, I think Lingard finally getting a run and having an instant impact. He put 2 goals in his first game and ended up with 5, 10+ scores, and bit of a stick it up Man United in the first game back to go score 2. So that was quite good.
Yeah, it was definitely really nice to see him happy playing the football that he loves to do. It's his calling, so it was very nice to see that this season with Jesse Lingard. So the second last of the awards, we'll call them, is how well we did this season in terms of points. So we're gonna sort of rank it. So for me, my highest points was 118, which Matt said before I was quite consistent with my points, so I didn't have too many outrageous scores. But in terms of you, Jack, what was your highest points total for the season?
Yeah, it's back in game week 32, 127, I think I finished on there. So yeah, that wasn't too bad.
Not bad at all, mate. 127, you take that every day of the week. And Matt, you were sort of around that similar ballpark, weren't you? It was one of those double, triple game weeks where you got your triple figure score as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, game week 19 was when I used the wild card. 139 points it was, and that turned my season on its head, because I think I went from near bottom, sort of the 60s, 70s in the league, and went straight back into the top 20, and turned my season around. So yeah, 139 points.
Yeah, definitely. And Statman, in your debut season, what was your highest points total for this season?
So probably there's a similar week to most people's highest score was game week 35, where we had some triple game weeks happening. So I had 125 points that week. With Greenwood and Fernandez went a bit nuts that day, and I did that without chips, so that wasn't too bad. But probably my best performance was actually one of the single game weeks where I actually cracked 100. So with Gundogan getting 38 points as a captain, so that was probably my best performance as opposed to high score there.
Yeah, definitely. And I would ask Ollie what his was, but I'm pretty sure it was similar to Matt. It was that wild card week where he persuaded you to play it. So I'm surprised that wasn't Ollie's moment of the season, to be honest. That wild card, because he was proper happy with that one. But he got a triple digit score there as well. I think it was around the 120 mark. If he pops on just quickly now, Ollie, we were just asking what your highest points total of the season was. I was saying I'm pretty sure that it was the wild card week where you played your wild card and you got a triple digit score, wasn't it?
Yeah, sorry, I just cut out there. Apologies. I don't think it was that high. I don't think it was one. I think 109 might have been the one. I think it was the same week where I think Matt played his wild card at a similar time. I sort of convinced him to play it. and he ended up trumping me. But I think 109, I think was the number, 108 or 109. But I remember that being a really good week. And then I think has everyone on the pod got over 100 this season?
All made triple digits, mate. We can take that
nice.
trophy home, and yeah, that was really good from all of us. Even Statman Dave, who was just telling us before, Ollie broke 100 twice. So debut season, that was 3 times. Never mind, three times. That's insane for your first season, mate. So hats off to you. And the final award, we'll go through it quickly. We'll just reel one player off each. Our surprise player of the season, and we'll try and pick different ones. Jack, you get the first pick out of a surprise player for the season.
Oh, it's got to be the man, Souček.
Yeah, definitely, mate. You loved
100%.
him towards the middle part of the season.
Middle part of the season, obviously, I'll give this one to the Guru. He was egging me on to get him in, and brought him in, and he absolutely carried the team, to be fair. So yeah, Souček was the one for me. He was absolutely fantastic with his goal scoring form that he did.
Yeah, definitely. And Ollie, a different player from Thomas Souček, but who was your surprise player of the season?
I'm going to go with what on FIFA would be considered a perfect link. So same nation, same club. I'm going to go Vladimir Sofal from right back for Southampton. He was unbelievable. Obviously, he's probably not the one that would spring to mind immediately, but the amount of points he was scoring for West Ham was unreal at some points. Like, he was just consistently getting assists, getting clean sheet points. Obviously, West Ham are pretty decent at the back, so having him in for a large part of the season, he's another one of my favourites that I've owned, Vladimir Sofal, so he'd probably be up there for me.
Yeah, definitely. He was in a lot of players' fancy managers' teams for the season. He definitely delivered for them. So, Statman Dave, in your first season, who was your surprise player? You've talked about Lingard a lot. Is he one of them for you?
Probably the one that came to mind, and I might be stealing this from the Guru, but Gundogan, I think, was the big surprise for me.
Yeah, definitely. He shocked a lot of managers, myself included. Every Man City fan out there, every fan of football, he was just tapering out in his career at Man City, and he just sort of started blocking goals from nowhere like there was no tomorrow. So, Matt, if that has been stolen from you, do you have another one in mind?
Yeah, it's going to be Martinez from Villa. I don't think anyone would have expected him to, be the highest scoring keeper, get save points and bonus points every single week. It was like Superman in goals. So yeah, it's definitely Martinez.
Definitely, and we spoke about him a lot on the podcast, and he's going to be in a lot of people's team of the seasons. But Patrick Bamford, for me, I didn't expect for him to pick up any points this season, let alone one of the highest scoring attackers in the game. I think he was 4th top goal scorer in the Premier League. So complete hats off to him. What a season he's had with Leeds, and he definitely shut me and Ollie up. So hopefully he can continue it next season, and he'll definitely be one in my team, depending on his price point. So thank you very much for this season, Patrick. And on the topic of Patrick Bamford, if we just bring up the little visual that we've got now for our team of the seasons, I'm not sure whose one it is, if this is just a collective one that we've got, but the FPL team of the season, there's not really much that you can argue with this one here. We've got Martinez in goal. As the Guru's just said, he was sort of one of the biggest surprises for this season, top scoring goalkeeper in FPL this season. Matt, just how massive was it to have him in between your sticks, getting you points every week?
Phenomenal. I think just the amount of saves and bonus he was getting, and if you owned him, especially in that first part of the season where he was a big differential, you were just getting green arrows every week. So yeah, he was crucial in the end.
Yeah, definitely. And Ollie, you spoke about it before with your Man City defenders, John Stones and Ruben Diaz. What a partnership they've formed this season in the Man City defence. Was it getting you double clean sheets, most points when you had them in at the right time, wasn't it? So it was sort of felt like a little bit of a cheat code, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. I've not really seen much like it, to be honest, in my few years of playing FPL, especially over the new year, probably from that period between December, January time. They were just keeping clean sheets every single week. It was unbelievable. So having Edison as well behind them as well, with even the triple up at times was brilliant. And, it's one of those a defensive double up. If it pays off, it can really set up your week. So that's something that's worked for me throughout the season, definitely.
Yeah, and Cresswell on the left hand side there, as we can see, he was because he got injured in the late half of the season, he sort of went under the radar a little bit, but he was one that was in my team a lot, and he did absolute wonders for me. And then partnering was probably one of my players of the season, Stuart Dallas on the right hand side there. He definitely did a lot for FPL managers. But we'll the midfield there, Jack, you've got to be very happy with the two midfielders that you've got there, Bruno Fernandez and Thomas Souček. They were two of your highlights of the season for sure, weren't they?
Yeah, they were definitely two that carried me through the season. Bruno was absolutely outstanding. Souček we spoke about. And then obviously the boys mentioned about Gundogan, who his form was exceptional. I probably didn't get him in till quite late on in my team either, same as you, Elliot, but he was absolutely unbelievable, wasn't he? And of course, Mo Salah had to make it as well, didn't he?
Yeah, definitely. Just sort of manages to score goals no matter what the situation is, Mo Salah, and finishing off the team with Matt's man Harry Kane and Patrick Bamford up top. I think if this team was fielded in real life, they'd definitely have a proper shout for a Premier League trophy, because that's the team of the season for Fantasy Premier League. And we'll look back at this in years to come when Thomas Souček sort of winning the Ballon d'Or, and we'll say, remember when he was cheap in FPL mid halfway through the season, scoring goals for fun for West Ham. So it'll be very interesting. But Matt, in terms of as a team as a whole, there, just looking at some of the players there, you wouldn't have expected it at the start of the season for some of them to be in your team of the season, would you?
No, especially Bamford. Phenomenal. Stuart Dallas, I'd heard things about him in the Championship and being able to get forward and stuff. But again, you wouldn't have expected him to do as well. Martinez, Cresswell. Phenomenal stuff. And even John Stones recovered this season to, just phenomenal goal scoring defender, clean sheets, everything. So, some surprises in there.
Yeah, definitely. But in terms of anyone that you think should be there that isn't Ollie, are you gonna make a strong argument for your man Sofao?
It's hard to make a strong one for him because the back four on merit all deserve to be there. But I had him in mind. I just think he was a very unknown quantity, wasn't he? Coming in from Slavia Prague. So I just think the fact that he was so surprising put him in my team. But I would have him in there. I think he was class from fullback for West Ham, and if he was in that team, would have deserved his spot there. But you can't argue with that back four anyway. No,
definitely not. And that's the team of the season for us. Let us know what sort of changes, anyone that you think you'd be making. But that wraps up the awards sort of section for the podcast. So we will move on now to the review of the Draft League, and I was going to let Jack do this because I know how much he was thrilled with the way that he finished this season. But the winner of the Draft League, the Papa John's Trophy, goes to Matt Dave, the Guru, who managed to get 22 wins, 1 draw and 13 losses, giving him 67 points in this league, finishing first. It was something that we spoke about a lot in the season, Matt, but how good does it feel to be crowned the winner of the Draft League?
Yeah, absolutely buzzing off it. It's good to to beat the draft guru Jack, who was up there most of the season. So I'm gonna have a nice glass of gin now on Jack Gillibrand. So thank you very much, mate.
No worries, mate. Enjoy the bottle that I sent over to you.
He tried to sabotage me at the end. He tried to sabotage me, but lucky James Gusden beat him at the end, and happy to take the win. And tough season. But yeah, happy beating the draft guru. So
yeah, definitely. And it was Jack who managed to finish in second, Ollie in third, Dave in fourth, James in fifth, myself in sixth. And then I think we've always decided that the two relegated this season were Papa Peely and Rolando. So that's how the Draft League shaped up for this season. And we're looking forward to getting a few new faces on next season to join in the league and make it a little bit more competitive. Give the relegation spots a little bit more of a challenge. But that wraps up the Draft League for the season. And unfortunately, that does bring us to the end of the very final podcast of the season. It's been a very, very, packed with everything that you'd want this season. But, it's been a crazy season. And we thank you all for being a part of it. Thank you all for getting involved and, joining the mini leagues and everything like that. Ollie, how good has it been to see the community come together and create something quite special?
Yeah, look, I don't have to get emotional, but this is one of those where it's just you're almost on the verge of tears. Honestly, it's been amazing. Obviously, to meet lads like Statman and to meet the Guru, like I would never have thought that at the start of this season I have such strong relationships with the pair of you, and the fact that we've built such a brilliant FPL community has been unreal. So it's been a pleasure to be a part of, and we'll be back next season for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And just before we do head off and sign off for the very final time this season, just a reminder, we do have our Fantasy Euro League, so you got to get in them. The code is on screen now. If you can't see it for the free mini league, it is 45KZE7YN07. So get involved in there and in the paid mini league as well, and show us what you're made of, and sort of fill the void of no domestic football with European football for the summer. So that unfortunately, boys, brings us to the end. Jack, Ollie, Dave, Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure this season to be a part of this. And as we said, we're not going anywhere. We'll be back next season. We're here for the Euros, so stay involved and everything like that. And yeah, for the very last time this season, take care, stay safe, and goodbye for now.